we contributed 8,000 something. We had 7 global grants, and we contributed 14 something. The reason why they are split is because 4 of them were in last year, but these were initiated last year and paid this year. So in total we had 11 grants paying something like 20,000. Why? This is an important thing. Clubs of the district paid cash to their projects over $220,000. Clubs paid $200,000. This year, the governor decided that we contribute from the DDF $3,000, and this was received, and we received thanks from the stewardship and reporting. The district is 73% up to date with the reporting requirement. This is up to November 2014. The district must maintain a 70% compliance at all times. Districts may be suspended from participation in any program if they continue to be below 70. We were below 70 last time, but this time we are above. 28 grants are still open from the previous history, of which the following are overdue. Many of them are still not due to report, but one in Armenia is reaching the red line, 2 in Lebanon, one of them is very serious situation. They have not for 24 months reported, and this we received a very serious our grants, I will not name any names, they received, I will advise the it was, I mean, they were informed, and all the people involved. Our grants, what did we achieve? What did our clubs do last year? We had successfully one package grants approved in 13-14, but that was towards the end of the year for Palestine. We already had that year one for Sudan, and that's to go for UNESCO, the water project, water masters and water and sanitation, which unfortunately this package grant is no more available as a foundation program, but we were the last ones to again receive there, and the Palestinian guy is from Gaza, by the way, and he went to Holland for this, and he sends his regards always to activities. We successfully managed to sponsor one Rotary Peace Fellow from Jordan for a master's degree in Bradford University, and we have one Rotary Peace Fellow for the professional certificates from Palestine as well. So the clubs of Palestine are really very engaged with Rotary and different programs. 19 global grants since 13-14, 8 were approved this year, 9 submitted still pending because the foundation is working on them, and 2 were submitted this year. The new strategy for the foundation and the PDF will be discussed in a separate presentation. In conclusion, the clubs and district team in every country must take the foundation issues seriously, more seriously, in attending the qualification, in setting goals, in fulfilling. Otherwise, we will not have a foundation. The country team of deputy foundation chair AGs must get involved with the clubs, urge them to participate in the foundation grants, follow up on their financial commitments, train them wherever necessary. Countries must hold their qualification seminars for 14-15 and local foundation seminars. We must always have country foundation seminars to keep people involved and alert of what is happening. Clubs must commit to set goals. We cannot afford 10-20% of planned giving and planned work and 80% of haphazard. Clubs must commit, attend training and seminars. The foundation is our foundation. It's open for all to do good in the world. We must commit to support it. Thank you. Thank you, PTG Usama. May I invite Mr. Maher and PDG Farid and PP Ronnie Farah. Usama, please do it. Yeah, ready. And George and George. Farid and Chris to start.
Mr. Governor, fellow Rotarian, it's a privilege for me to introduce Mr. Chris Maher, WHO Manager for Polio Eradication and Emergency Support. Chris, originally from Queensland, Australia, worked in the public health sector for the past 3 decades, specifically in polio eradication for 21 years, joined WHO in 1993, working on immunization, spent the first 8 years working in the Western Pacific region based in Manila, and his position had him covering over 30 countries. He has been involved in polio eradication at every level, from organizing local vaccination campaign, investigating cases, through to running the technical elements of the global program. Since 2000, Maher has led operations for polio eradication across Asia, Africa, and Europe. Chris, the floor is yours.
Distinguished delegates, thank you very, very much for the invitation. I truly appreciate it. It was probably one of the nicest introductions I think I've ever had. But one thing that I should have tried to get in the introduction was that do in the next few minutes is to give you an idea of what's happening with polio in the world. And I apologise if it strays a little bit into the technical sometimes, but I'm aware from a lot of interaction with Rotarians that I'm dealing with people who are senior leaders in business or in professions, whether it's the medical profession or engineering or finance or whatever. So in my experience, people understand pretty readily what it is that I'm saying. So I don't think it would be too much of a problem. One issue that we strike quite often, actually, particularly for those Rotarians coming from places that have been free of polio for a long time, is that we don't really remember what polio is. Human beings have short memories, and even in the 1950s in the United States, through that decade, approximately 60,000 people were killed and paralyzed. It's not all that long ago, it's just the middle of the last century, and this is the most developed country on the face of the earth. So it has been a very, very serious and punishing disease for a very long time, and up until the memory of those who are still alive in many, many countries. In Iraq and Syria and the Middle East, no one had seen polio for nearly 20 years. And suddenly polio came back due to the reintroduction of the virus that came in from Pakistan, began causing an outbreak in Syria and spread to Iraq. And I'll go through that a little bit as we get along. But this is the effect. You can see this child. It's hard to see from the photograph on this slide, but you can see that wasting is already showing in the child's legs. Now the child is now permanently paralyzed. This child is less than 2 years of age and will live. In the last 6 months, if we take a quick snapshot of what's happening with polio, and I heard Tom Friedman's remarks on the video that we saw when he said that we're really making quite a lot of progress in many parts of the world, and it's absolutely right. If we look at those countries that are coloured in yellow, those are countries that have reported cases in the past 6 months. That's only 5 countries in the whole world. One of the good pieces of news, if you can see that circle in the light blue there, is that one of the very active outbreaks, the Middle East outbreak, has not reported any cases in the last 6 months. So the Middle East is moving back towards being polio-free, which is very gratifying. In Africa, there's only 2 countries that have reported, excluding Somalia at this stage, because being from WHO, we are schizophrenic. Somalia is part of the Eastern Mediterranean region, which comes under the levels of the African region, which doesn't. But the Nigeria and Cameroon are the only 2 countries that have reported cases, and in the last 6 months, between them, they have only reported 4 cases. So Africa is very, very close to becoming polio-free. The Horn of Africa, which had an outbreak more than 220 cases stretching from 2013 through 2014, has reported only 5 cases so far in 2014. So this is all really good news, and this is a tremendous amount of progress. So outside of the last area, Pakistan and Afghanistan, there have been only 9 cases reported in the world in the last 6 months. Unfortunately, in Pakistan and Afghanistan, we have, in some areas, essentially uncontrolled transmission. And this transmission is really the last big challenge we have to deal with to eradicate polio. What the transmission in Afghanistan and Pakistan does, and in contrast with what's happening to everywhere else where polio case numbers are going down, it means that in our region of the world, or my region, because Pakistan and Afghanistan come under me, the proportion of global cases in that region is just going up. So this year, so far, about 95% of all polio cases in the world come from the region, the Eastern Mediterranean region. And about 90% of these actually have come from Pakistan. Just having a quick look at the different outbreaks, I mentioned that Somalia has gone really well from 2013 in the blue down to 2014 in the red. Tremendous reduction from nearly 200 cases down to just 5. In the Middle East, which could have been an outbreak of thousands of cases, could have been thousands of cases, got away with only 36 cases overall, astonishing. And only 2 of those cases have occurred, 3 of those cases, sorry, have occurred in 2004. But Afghanistan has been struggling, mostly because of Pakistan. Pakistan has been really struggling. So the scorecard for the past 6 months is, as I mentioned, we're responsible for most of the polio in the world. Pakistan alone is the biggest single threat. But in 2015, it's likely that there's only going to be 2 countries in the world that will be Pakistan. There's been a few developments recently that are not very exciting for anyone unless you work for the World Health Organization or the Ministry of Health. But for us, this is fairly exciting. In 2012, the World Health Assembly said that polio is a programmatic emergency for public health. In 2013, our own regional committee, which is made up of ministers of health in all countries in the region, similarly said the spread of polio is an emergency for our region. Lastly, probably most importantly, in 2014, the international health regulations were invoked by the community and WHO to say that now we've hit the point where we can begin using international public health legislation to deal with this problem. So essentially, the World Health Organization, through the medium of the international health regulations, can now begin imposing mandatory procedures for travellers coming to Pakistan and Afghanistan. This is potentially very significant for the economies of both those countries, but in terms of protecting the rest of the world, it's very important. Pakistan is really incredibly important, and it's important, I think, to understand what exactly is happening. You can see that map of Pakistan on the right-hand side, and you can see that there's not very much polio in most of Pakistan. 90% of the people in Pakistan are living in areas that are polio free. The real issue is areas that are security compromised, where there's active fighting, blocks on immunisation, or areas like Peshawar and Karachi, where there are serious security concerns for vaccinators and security forces that are trying to protect them. This week, 4 vaccinators were killed in Balochistan. That block of red cases on the left-hand side down there is the middle of the map. That area that has cases, 4 vaccinators were murdered. And another 4 were seriously injured. And another vaccinator was shot up here in Shahzada in Peshawar. This is terrible sorts of developments that make it very, very difficult for vaccinators to carry out their work. They're obviously extremely scared. The security forces that provide them with support during the rounds are frequently targeted as well. So all of this means that in those areas where polio still is, it's very hard to get into vaccinated kids. The obvious question is there any progress in Pakistan? And I think the answer is yes. I was there about 10 days ago for 2 weeks, and we reviewed all the plans for the coming 6 months. And in my impression, the government is much more engaged than it's been for a long time. We have much better coordination between the government and partners, including Rotary, which is very strong in Pakistan, and the Polio Eradication program in Pakistan. But we still have to overcome this issue of security, attacks on workers, and the effect that has on the quality of care. I didn't want to depress us too much, so I thought I'd tell you some good news, and look in particular at the Middle East polio outbreak, because most of us in the room are coming from countries that could have been potentially affected by that outbreak, or that were affected by that outbreak, and it was responded to very, very effectively. I think everyone knows the context that we've been operating in Syria. There's more than 3 million Syrian refugees registered in that country, another 6 million Syrians displaced inside the country, and recently, in the middle of the year in Iraq, more than 2 million people displaced. So huge population movements and huge security concerns across the region. But in, I think, what's been probably one of the most successful multi-country responses to a polio outbreak ever, we've managed to keep the number of cases down to 38. Honestly, when I first investigated the outbreak in November last year, I investigated it with a colleague called Mike Ryan, who's a former senior WHO director of venereal diseases. And we both expected that there would be thousands of cases from this outbreak. So to keep it down to less than 40 cases is truly astonishing. The response itself was huge, with over 40 large-scale immunisation activities in 8 countries, more than 130 million doses of polio vaccine used in the response. Really quite impressive. And these are the countries that were involved. Syria and Iraq, of course, as a primary outbreak zone, and all of the neighbouring countries there that you see listed conducted some sort of immunisation and surveillance response. Just to show you that this is I don't expect anyone to really understand this map, but the point of it basically is that if there's any colour in any of those districts, that's a district in which independent monitors were able to check whether or not children were immunised during polio campaigns. So astonishingly enough, despite the fact that there is a war going on, more than 90% of districts have had activities in Syria, and more than 90% of districts we've been able to have independent monitors checking to see whether or not children. So it's quite exceptional, I think, under the circumstances in Syria that has happened, and it's a real credit to all of the health workers operating in any area of Syria that have been able to manage to pull that off. And the impact of that has been extraordinary. This chart, basically the fundamental rule with any chart on vaccination status is that red is bad, yellow is not all that good, and anything that's light or dark green is fundamentally good. That's the number of doses of vaccine that a child has received. And you can see that this goes by quarter. You can see during 2013, we were finding a very high proportion of children in Syria who had never been immunised at all, or who had only been partly immunised in red or yellow. But by the first quarter of 2014, through to the third quarter of 2014, the impact of all those immunisation activities was coming through. And the number of kids who never had a dose of vaccine dropped to almost nothing. This has had an effect on cases. I'll let you time on that. Similarly, in Iraq, despite the conflict there, these districts in red are the only districts in Iraq where no immunisation took place. This is the August immunisation round that we're looking at here. In the September and October rounds that have just been completed, which were national rounds as well, access was even better than it was in August. So we're reaching at least well over 90% of the target population in Iraq with vaccine. We may not be getting every single kid in that 90%, but it's a pretty good performance considering what's going on. And a similar sort of pattern you can see in Iraq. Iraq started out not as bad as Syria did, but there were still quite high proportions, up to 20% of kids that were under-immunised in Iraq through 2013. By the time we reached the third quarter of 2014, that has dropped to almost nothing. So this is pretty impressive. The other impressive elements, I think, are that Lebanon, Jordan, Egypt and Turkey, all of whom were getting very large numbers of displaced Syrian refugees, have not had a single case of polio. All 4 of those countries responded with big immunisation campaigns and intensified surveillance activities, and they haven't found any polio. And also the environmental samples that were being taken, particularly in Palestine, were positive in 2013, showing that there was virus there, and negative in 2014. So we really have averted a very, very major epidemic in the Middle East, and that's to the credit of everyone involved, and particularly credit also to our colleagues in Rotary International who've been heavily involved in it. And this success was achieved very, very simply by meeting limits, putting vaccine into children's mouths. With vaccine in children's mouths, we stopped thousands of cases of polio. So in summary, we've done pretty well in the Middle East. Despite all of the conflict and the population movement, we've been able to implement response activities. The immunisation status of children is getting better basically in every country across the world in the Middle East because of the campaign. We still have a lot of big risks in the Middle East with population movement, with continued fighting, etc. But we're pretty positive that actually we've reached the point where we've stopped virus transmission in the Middle East. There's going to be a big review in January to tell us whether or not everyone else agrees with us. But I think we can be fairly positive Rotarians have been involved in this whole process virtually from the beginning of the response. What are our risks if we don't finish polio in Pakistan and Afghanistan? Because we seem to be doing pretty well everywhere else in the world. So what happens if we don't manage to finish it in those two places? Well, the main thing that's going to happen is that virus from those places is going to move out. We know that. We know we cannot keep virus in. We've either got to wipe it out or it's going to get out. And as you can see, the outbreaks in the past 4 years, wild polio virus from Pakistan has caused outbreaks in China, Syria, Iraq, Palestine, and Afghanistan. So it does get out, and it will continue to get out until we can stop it. A big issue for those of us who live and work in this region is that the vast majority of travellers from Pakistan and Afghanistan actually travel to and often work in countries of the Middle East and the Gulf. So we are the primary recipients of people who would potentially be carrying the virus. So that begs the question then, what can we do to help make sure that polio stops? And the first thing we can do is to support Pakistan to finish polio. Pakistan is by far the biggest risk of the two countries, and it's mostly Pakistan virus that's affecting Afghanistan. So we need to be able to get rid of it from Pakistan. We need to be able to advocate with government at all levels. Anyone who has any contacts. Rotary is very, very active in Pakistan with advocacy. They regularly meet the President, the Prime Minister, Chief Ministers of provinces, etc. to push for the polio eradication agenda. We can also support regional efforts to engage religious and community leaders in Pakistan to push for their involvement in polio. At home, what can we do? We can try to do our best to protect ourselves in the event the virus moves out of Pakistan in the coming 12 months, because as long as we can try to keep it pinned in to a limited geographic area, we'll have an easier job of getting rid of it. If we let it spread, it will get worse and most of the world. I think what is likely to happen within the next few months is that there will be immunisation requirements instituted for travellers coming from Pakistan, virtually any country in the region. That's pretty much certain. Within our own countries, we need to identify vulnerable groups, whether they're migrant groups, whether they're local groups who are underserved or unimmunised, and we need to make sure that they get vaccinated. So in the event the virus does come in, it's not going to spread very easily. Lastly, for Rotarians, I'm sure that you understand very well the impact of what happens when a major community organisation like Rotary becomes involved in something. Looking at it from the outside, I'm not a Rotarian, although I've worked with Rotarians for so long. Looking at it from the outside, when I see what happens with Rotary involvement, Rotary advocacy, Rotary engagement in countries at national level, it makes a huge difference, because it sends a message to the government that not only is this something that's of concern to an international agency or to a foreign embassy or something else, it's something that's a concern to their own community and to influential people within their own community who want to see that engagement, they want to see something done. So the very fact that Rotarians get involved and get engaged has a very, very big advocacy impact on the selected country. Basically, if we ask what we want to achieve, in 2015, we want to eradicate polio from the world. We want it to be the last year when any child gets immunised, infected by polio and becomes paralysed and killed by polio. Hopefully it won't be the last year that any child gets immunised, we'll do that for some time to come. This is a fairly ambitious goal, but I think the way that things are going in the world, it's definitely something that we can achieve. We can end up in 2015 ending this very, very long and difficult road. And the last thing I think that we can say is, I'm sure the children in the Middle East are saying thank you very much to Rotary, following the successful impact of the campaigns against the outbreak here in the Middle East, and the fact that many, many thousands of children in the Middle East are now walking around when they could have been dead or paralyzed. So thank you very much for your support, and I'll leave it there.